Well, good morning, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Brad here. I hope you're having a blessed morning wherever you are. It is absolutely picture perfect gorgeous today. I saw that I was reading somebody who's, cold and wet, and I feel for you. I really do. Because today is one of those days where Wisconsin is absolutely the place to be. I got to be honest. Blue skies, just once in a while a wisp of cloud, but just a light breeze. It's probably 72 outside. No big deal. Gorgeous day. Anyway, coffee in hand, scriptures on the table, friends on the line. This is going to be a great morning. So let's get to it right after we have a little swig of coffee. Let's say hi to everybody. All right. Let's see who's here. Oh, Monica Sherman, first one in the house today. Good morning to you and Susie, the adaptive maritimer. Good morning to Amanda and Sally H. Stars in a Forest. Kathy O. Good morning to Phoenix and Pepper Lee and Steve Gnink. Good morning to Delaney B. Lisa Park. And by the way, that is weird. I didn't know you could can milk. I'm going to have to do some more research into that. What's it like on the other side? Is it like cheesy or weird? Because you're cooking it. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Good morning to Jeanette, Delaney B, Lisa Park, obviously, Phoebe. Good morning to T. Pearson. Playing with Jen. Alicia, good morning to you. Prayers for you and your family, obviously. Difficult times. Susie and I think I might have got everybody. Southern Prairie Homestead. Oops, screen just jumped on me. Where are we at? Southern Prairie Homestead. Oh, Bulletproof Pastor. Krista and crew. No Man. Hi. And Julie P. 320 Homestead. Good morning to you. And if I have missed you, if I've missed your name, I promised you, it is not intentional. Good morning. Clink. All right. Okay. We are in the book of Matthew, chapter 14, ESV version of the Bible. And there's some good stuff in here, but there's also going to be some time at the end of our devotion, I'm hoping, that I want to really talk about just some stuff that's going on in our society and what our reaction or action should be in light of what's going on. So we don't deal with fear, but we do prepare. So let's start in verse 1 of chapter 14. This is basically, we're starting out dealing with the death of Herod, the death of John the Baptist, and what happens, how Jesus reacts. Here we go. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard about the fame of Jesus, and he said to his servants, "This is John the Baptist. He has been raised from the dead. That is why these miraculous powers are at work in him." For Herod had seized John and bound him and put him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because John had been saying to him, "It is not lawful for you to have her." And though he wanted to put him to death, he feared the people because they held him to be a prophet. But when Herod's birthday came, the daughter of Herodias danced before the company and pleased Herod, so that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she might ask. Prompted by her mother, she said, "Give me the head of John the Baptist here on a platter." And the king was sorry because of his oaths and his guests, he commanded it to be given. He sent and had John beheaded in prison, and his head was brought on a platter, given to the girl, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples came and took the body and buried it, and they went and told Jesus. Now when Jesus heard this, he withdrew from this place, from where the boat, from there in a boat to a desolate place by himself. When the crowds heard of it, they followed him on foot from the towns. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd and had compassion on them and healed their sick. Now when it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "There is a desolate place, and the day is now over. Send the crowds away to go into the villages and buy food for themselves." But Jesus said, "They need not go away. You give them something to eat." They said to him, We have only 5 loaves here and 2 fish. And he said, "Bring them here to me." And then he ordered the crowds to sit down on the grass, and taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and said a blessing. Then he broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. And they all ate and were satisfied. And they took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces left over. And those who ate were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Miraculous. Right? Okay. Sip of coffee. Let's get rolling. All right. Okay, first things first. I want to point out just a little bit of the history of what's going on here. Okay, Herod the Tetrarch was son of Herod the, air quotes, Great. Son of Herod the Great. Now, Herod the Great was the one who made the edict to kill all of the children under 3 when Jesus was born, in an attempt to kill Jesus. That was Herod the, air quotes, Great. Not so great in my book. So Herod the Tetrarch, this is the son. Now, it says that he came to power when he was only 17 years old, when Herod the Great died. Now, think about this for a second. You are a 17-year-old kid who's grown up with everything that you can imagine. You're the top of the heap. You're Chris Cuomo. You think of it like that. Chris Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo's son. And now the king is dead, and now you're king. You rule the greatest city in the land, right? Greatest, air quotes, I mean. So basically, he's had everything he wants growing up, and now he's the king. So just to keep in mind what kind of ugly everything would have been manifested out of that kind of life. I mean, they're a Roman, they basically are enforcing Roman rule. That's what they are. So they are a beaten people, a conquered people by Rome, but Rome put them in power to rule the locals. You keep the locals in hand. You give us our tax money. Everybody's fine. You get out of hand, there's going to be problems. We're going to have words. So that's this guy. If you can kind of get an idea that he must have been a very warped individual. Growing up in that kind of way. Now, verse 2. He said to his servants, this is Herod the Tetrarch, the younger one. Okay? The Herod the Tetrarch. He said to his servants, this is John the Baptist. He has been raised from the dead. That is why these miraculous powers are at work in him. So what do we got to deal with that? I mean, maybe this guy has some kind of weird combination of superstition and maybe a little Judaism thrown in there, mixed with a little fear, maybe even a little bit of hope. Maybe because, I mean, in the other gospel, it kind of gives us the impression that he really didn't want to kill John the Baptist, but he did it because he said he would, and he was kind of under the gun, and he mouthed off, and he shouldn't have mouthed off, but he mouthed off, and now he made this commitment, right? So you've got this guy, Jesus, running around out there, healing people, miracles, and Herod the Tetrarch takes notice of it. Okay, that's not a good place to be if you consider the situation, right? If you're Jesus, that's not a good place to be, that target of this probably crazy guy, right? So, verse 9, they talk about Herod basically killing John the Baptist, that it was messed up. He was sleeping with his brother's wife. This was bad, bad, bad. You don't do this. And then, to make it worse, his brother's wife's daughter starts dancing at this party or whatever get together they're having, right? And everybody's probably, let's just say, very influenceable. Let's just say that. I'm going to guess that. Probably a fair guess, Roman / party time with the Herod palace, let's do this. I bet it was crazy times. And so she starts dancing, and I don't know what that word pleased means, but Herodias danced before the company and pleased Herod, so that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she might ask. Now, I'm going to let you do whatever you want with that phrase, because regardless of whatever you come up with, it's sinful. It's gross. It's whatever you want to deal with that. It's wrong. And prompted by her mother. Little vindictive, much. The guy's dead. Or no, she wants him dead. Sorry. She wants this guy dead for talking about them, even though that she knows what they're doing is wrong. And the king was sorry, but because of his oaths and his guests, he commanded it to be given. Now, here's something I'd like to point out. If you're a good ruler and you make, a public statement about something, anything, take your pick. Let's say that I'm going to make everything completely fake because I don't want people to figure on picking sides and getting all political and off the beaten map. So let's say that you're King Bob of the country of Bobdom, right? And your country really, really, really wants to come over here and take over King Tom's country, because King Tom's country has a lot of grain and stuff. And so you decide, well, I'm not going to talk to Tom because then they will be giving up secrets, and we want to get in there without him knowing. So Bob's country invades Tom's country, right? And they find out after lots and lots and lots of people are dying that Tom had intended on trying to trade his grains that they needed for iron that Bob needed. So, as a leader, what do you do? Do you stop the bloodshed and say, all right, we need to take a different course? I mean, truthfully, you should say I was wrong, but that doesn't happen in politics. Just doesn't happen. But do you just say, okay, we have decided that we will take a new course? Or do you just keep doing what you're doing because you said you were going to do it, even though it's wrong? Right? Hold on. Now, in my opinion, excuse me, in my opinion, A good leader is willing to admit when a course correction needs to happen, i.e., when I was wrong. A bad leader will try to spin it and make it sound like it's the other guy's fault, and we need to double down. We need to go to war. We need to do this and we need to do that. And so, in my opinion, Herod could have absolutely changed the course for probably a lot. I mean, can you imagine what life would have been like had John the Baptist lived? Think about that for a sec. Now, if John the Baptist lived, now this is all theoretical, hypothetical, just because we don't know. But at some point, you got to believe that he would have hooked up with Jesus' crew, and they would have been like this mega power crew, right? At some point. Or even, let's just say that they never hooked up before Jesus was crucified and died and was resurrected. If John had lived, can you imagine how much of a force for change and redemption and salvation he would have been in the early church? Holy mackerel. It would have been a powerhouse. Well, we can only assume that kind of stuff, and it's all just mental games. But the point I'm trying to make is just with the king. You know, it says he was sorry, but not sorry enough to save this man's life. He could have put a stop to it. He could have manned up and said, you know what, I'm the king. I've decided differently. You, dancing girl, that was very nice and all. Here, you get 1,000 acres of land. You know? And then be done with it. I'm the king. I can do what I want. The end. But he didn't. He was a wuss. He was a wuss. He was sorry. Sorry. You lose your head. Sorry. Meaning, weak leader. And he basically had, he was not man enough to admit that he'd made a mistake. He was rash in his oath. Yeah? Excellent point, Bulletproof Pastor. The Apostle Paul committed similar evil as Herod did, persecuting and ordering the death of innocent people, but each took a different path. Isn't that crazy? It's so true. All right, now, this is where the title for the devotion comes from. Now, verse 13, when Jesus heard this, he withdrew from there in a boat to a desolate place by himself. But when the crowds heard it, they followed him on foot from the towns. Now, yes, when I was trying to think of some kind of interesting name for the Bible devotion, instantly there's a song that popped into my head. It keeps you running, yeah, it keeps you running, right? Well, so I was looking at this and I'm like, wait a second. Verse 13, right? Jesus withdrew. Is he running away? Is he running? Are you kidding me? Is he running? And the answer is yes, but not out of fear. He's getting out of there, out of Dodge, but not because of fear. He's not afraid to die. He's trying to fulfill his mission. That's the thing. Prophecies have to be fulfilled. He's still needing to heal the sick and do all the stuff that Jesus does. He's got to get to the cross. So running away is not the same thing in terms of connotation of fear. He's not afraid. He's running to get out of there because this guy could derail my mission, this crazy guy. If Herod the Tetrarch thinks that I am a threat, he's going to end me not in the way that I need to be ended. Isn't that crazy? He's not afraid. There's no fear there, but he is hauling butt to get out of town. Because crazy Herod could wreck my mission if I don't get out of here. I need to be able to innocently go to the cross to pay for the sins of humanity. Right? He was not afraid, but he was running. So he goes to get out of there. Okay? Out of a desire to fulfill his mission. Right? Now, verse 16. This blows my mind. And I got to hurry up because I want to get to something. Jesus is talking to the disciples. This is the feeding of the 5,000, right? They followed him. They're listening to him. And now it's nighttime. Disciples are like, hey, these guys they're going to be weak. They're not going to be able to get back to their homes. What are we going to feed them? Why don't you send them to the villages? Is their brilliant idea, right? Kind of, I don't know what you would say. That's maybe they're like, just get them out of here. I don't know. I don't know. What do you want to do? Hey, John, get over here. What do you think we should do about these guys? I mean, don't forget, these are men. This is a confab. They're trying to figure out what to do. They probably didn't want to bother Jesus at every little turn, but they probably were like, okay, hey, Judas, you go talk to him this time. They're people just like us. They're not just words on a page. If it were me and I was talking to the boss, I would probably be with kid gloves too. Like, okay, here's the scoop. But Jesus responds to them, hey, they don't have food? Okay, fine. They don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. And they're like, they said, we only have 5 loaves and 2 fish. Bring them here. Now, this is what strikes me as interesting. Okay? Don't forget, these disciples had already been empowered by Jesus to heal the sick, cast out demons, raise the dead, do miracles. They had already been out there doing it in the field, all of them. They'd been part of all of this stuff. And now they're just kind of like, the boss is here. The boss, let's go talk to the boss. He knows what to do. I can't possibly do this. It's just so strange to me that it would not even occur to them that they had already been given the power to do so. Sound familiar? Kind of like us sometimes? Scratch, scratch, scratch. And of course, Jesus, being gracious, says, all right, fine. Come on. Give everybody around here. Sit down. Let's pray, guys. We're going to have some dinner. Right? And of course, he gives thanks. Everyone eats, and they're all satisfied. Now, that's an important part of this. Verse 20, and they all ate and were satisfied. Were satisfied, meaning they had a full belly. So there was far more food than the disciples had. And there was so much that they brought up 12 baskets full of broken pieces that were left over. And I think that Jesus was trying so hard to just bring them along. Like, guys, disciples, there's a time coming when I'm not going to be here, and you're going to have to do these things. And I think that every once in a while, it's kind of like fishing, where Jesus is like casting a lure into the water and going, hey, disciples, come on. Come a little bit closer. You're going to have to do this soon. At some point, I'm not going to be here. And I think Jesus is just delicately drawing them in, going, you're going to have to man up sometime, guys. Sometimes coming soon. Let me see if I can grab a comment. Scott says, had Jesus wanted to, he could have snapped his fingers and they would have all had poof, been gone. Yep. Yeah, he could have. Absolutely. But you're right. That was not Jesus' style. nor would have it fulfilled the prophecies. T. Pearson says, Jesus forced them to count what they had and acknowledge their limitations. Excellent point. Then it was 100% clear that Jesus was the one who did the miracle. That's really, that's a good point. That's a point that I had not calculated. Excellent point. Agreed. Let's see. Everybody else has agreed. Tuna sandwiches. That's nice. All right. So there you have it, guys. Those are the notes that I have for today. Jesus is such a patient teacher, Tess. You're absolutely right. Even when we keep messing it up, even when we keep getting it wrong, he just goes, okay, well, come on, let's try something different. Let's see what we can do here. He doesn't go, gosh, you got that wrong, stupid. I told you this 50 million times. He doesn't do that. Kind and patient teacher. Did they know that Jesus was going to the cross already? Not at Phoebe. Depending on the gospel, which one you're reading, there are different times when Jesus alludes to what is going to happen, but they were not clued in. They had no clue at this point. They thought he was just going to be some prophet or great leader, or if he was the Messiah, then he'd be a military leader who would usher in peace and get Rome off their backs. But not at this point. Not at this point. They didn't realize it. So now, okay, for the remaining few minutes that we have, guys, I want to talk briefly, well, hopefully briefly, about all the garbage that's going on in our society, the burning of cities, the murdering of innocent people, the rioting, BLM, and COVID, and politicians, and control, and how are we supposed to live our lives as Christians in all of this nonsense? Okay? Because I know it's a hard thing for us to go, well, wait a minute, we've got this God who's supposed to protect us, yet we see what's going on. People's businesses are getting burned, and we're seeing all of this craziness. The first thing we need to remember is God is sovereign, and none of this takes him by surprise. None of it. Now, that's a hard thing to wrap your head around when you're like, well, if he's sovereign and he knows about all this, why is he allowing it to happen? Well, we may never know the answer to that, but look to the book of Job. Job was a man who was tormented. Satan was allowed to torment this guy. He didn't really deserve it. He just was faithful to God. So when we see things that are negative going on around us, it's easy to go, well, where are you, God? Well, first of all, he never left. God's sovereign. He's never taken by surprise. And we are not promised sunshine and lollipops. We've talked about this. Jesus has said we're going to go through horrible stuff. Now, one of the issues, though, guys, is that in the West, Canada, United States, we've been insulated from a lot of the stuff that goes on in the less than civilized world. And now it's starting to manifest itself here. So, what do we do? What should be our action? And I mean that sincerely, not reaction. What should be our action as believers? Now, first, God's in control. He's God, I'm not. I submit to the scriptures. I submit to the Holy Spirit. I submit to what he wants in my life as best I can. And then when I screw up and mess it up, I ask for forgiveness. Now, what do I do? Well, I can't tell you what you're supposed to do, but I can tell you what I am doing. We have intentionally stayed in an area of the country that's very low populated. Intentionally. We have the blessing of that there's not a lot of people around to make problems. And if people try to come to where we live to make problems, it would be very, very, very silly. Now, what we really need to understand, though, is we're not fighting against flesh and blood. We're fighting against principalities and powers of darkness. And people are confused and they're doing stuff that they shouldn't do. But that's not who we're against. We're against the darkness. Spiritual warfare, real spiritual warfare. Not like, I'm coming in the name of Jesus to grab a parking space so I can get closer to the sales on Black Friday. No. I'm talking about the reality that the darkness doesn't want racial division to go away. The darkness wants that rift. They want to pull people apart. Even though, I don't have any black friends here just because I don't know of any black people that live around here. They just don't. It's not anything against black people. It's just they don't. The end. But in Cincinnati, the drummer that I selected for my praise team, his name's Ulysses. Cool guy. Good friend. A lot of black friends. And now the darkness wants to tear us apart. Don't let it. Don't let it. Choose not to listen to the baloney that's on this fake, manufactured, lie, centralized media. Don't do it. Don't listen to them. You know what? Judge people based upon their actions. Judge people based upon their actions. Forrest Gump, right? Stupid is as stupid does. If that person's stupid, don't hang around them. But I think that we really need to be in a lot of prayer. I think we need to be actively praying for our leadership. And this is the hard part that I really wanted to get to, guys, that I don't know. I hope that I word this properly, okay? As a Christian, you're not called to be a doormat. You're not called to basically stand there and take it if someone says, I'm coming after your family because you're blah, because you're white, or because you're black, or because you're purple, or because you're pink, that you're less than. You're not commanded by the scriptures to stand there and allow them to do it. Now, does that mean we should be aggressive? No. Does it mean we should be able to defend ourselves? Yes. Now, that's really all I wanted to say about that, is that you absolutely are allowed to defend yourself. And I would, as a friend to a friend, figure out how you could defend yourself if evil came your way. First is spiritual warfare. Prayer. Put on the armor of God, the full armor of God. Submit yourself first to God. Submit, then resist. Submit, then resist. Put on the full armor of God. And you know what? 99% of the darkness is just going to walk away. They're going to flee. But the reality is that if you're ever in a situation where you need to defend yourself, don't fear it. Just do it. I'm not calling for anybody to be aggressive in any way, but if somebody comes at you, stop them. And what does that mean in your life? Well, it may mean that you might need to take some self-defense lessons or something. It might mean that you need to grow a garden because you might not be able to get to the store. It might mean that you need to start talking to your neighbors, like our friends, Prep Sir Bob and Pride and Kelly and all the other neighbors that we're getting to be buddies with, that now if something crazy were to happen, I can pick up the phone and I've got another 10 people here within 5 minutes. Now, I'm not going to